Okay, here we go. Earth systems and resources. Make sure you read chapter 8 pretty quick. We're going to run through this, except for soil stuff. We'll be working with soil in the classroom for quite a while, for a few days. Big Bang Theory, Earth's formation. Yay, we have Earth. The Earth itself is made out of the core, the mantle, and the crust. You should know what they're made out of. The core is primarily nickel and iron. The core actually has a solid inner core and a liquid outer core, although it's not liquid like we think of liquid. It's kind of, well, it's magma-ish. That's under extreme pressure, extreme heat, so it's very interesting how it all works. Then you have the mantle, which is primarily magma. Then you have the crust, which is, depending on whether you're an oceanic crust or continental crust, determines what it's made out of. One's basalt and one's granite, and off the top of my head, I can't remember which is which. Oceanic crust is heavier, sits lower on the mantle, which is why the oceans are where they are. The Earth also has the asthenosphere and the lithosphere. The lithosphere is the crust and the top upper tiny pit of the mantle, and that forms our plates. The plates are riding on the asthenosphere, which is a layer in the mantle, which is molten rock magma, and it forms convection cells just like the atmosphere does, and that's what's pushing the plates around, is those convection cells. So again, here it's a picture showing the convection cells. So when the convection cells are coming up and moving apart, that's where you have seafloor spreading, or a divergent boundary. They're moving away from each other. And then, of course, where you have two convection cells colliding and then dipping down, that's where you're going to have your collisions, your convergent boundaries. You're going to get oceanic trenches and volcanic islands and that kind of thing. Okay, a hotspot. You should be aware of what a hotspot is. A hotspot is pretty cool. It is a location where magma is very close to the surface. It's a spot in the asthenosphere. It's not the lithosphere, so and it stays put. It's really odd. So the plates are moving across the top of it. The Hawaiian Islands are a hot spot, and that's why there's a series of them, because as they move, the plate is moving over the hot spot. The hot spot makes more islands. There's actually already 2 volcanoes on the seafloor, forming the next Hawaiian Island. Of course, it'll take a few million years to occur, but it's already happening, and that's why there's a series of Hawaiian Islands. Yellowstone National Park is also a hotspot. It's slowly moving off the hotspot. So all the geysers and stuff are shifting, and Old Faithful, the big geyser that's like the cornerstone of it, used to go off like every 54 minutes, and now it's like every hour and 20 minutes because it's moving off the hotspot, so it takes longer for it to get hot enough to actually blow. So it's kind of interesting. Theory of plate tectonics. This is our current theory of how we got to where we are and how everything's moving around. Started with Pangea. Pangea broke apart because of those convection cycles, and the continents have moved into the positions they are. Lots and lots and lots. I'm sorry, I'm yawning. Lots of evidence showing this. A lot of skeletal remains, old collision sites are Appalachian Mountains are actually a collision site of the continents when they collided to form Pangea. So there was actually continents prior to Pangea. We don't know really what occurred prior, but we know since then everything's moved apart. Here's your plate boundaries. The red ones are spreading zones. All of the spreading zones where the ocean floors are moving apart from each other and adding new ocean floor, they're all underwater. There's no spreading zone that's not underwater. The blue are collision zones or subduction zones. One plate is sliding under another plate. kind of interesting phenomenon. Creates trenches, creates volcanic activity, creates volcanoes, both island volcanoes and island arcs, volcanic islands in the ocean. Aleutian Islands were formed that way. All of the Japanese islands were formed that way. The mountains in Chile and Peru, the Andes, are all because of the subduction zone there. Okay, volcanoes. Magma comes up, forms a volcano, lots of different types of volcanoes. Supposedly you're supposed to know them all. You're not going to, because I'm not spending time on it, because it's probably not even a question. So we'll move on. There's basically 3 different types of plate boundaries when you talk about plates. They either are colliding, moving away from each other, or sliding by each other. So divergent boundaries are when they're pulling away from each other, and that's going to form new ocean floor or new crust, because magma is going to seep up in there. And it's a very slow process. Plates move about the same speed as your fingernails grow, so about 3 to 4 centimeters a year is all you're going to get. So it's not a very fast process. Convergent boundaries is when the boundaries are colliding or coming at one another. This is where you're going to get subduction zones, you're going to get trenches, you're going to get volcanoes, you're going to get earthquakes. If it's an area where 2 plates are pushing together, continental to continental, they'll actually push up and form mountains, and those would be like the Himalayas. Transform boundaries are fault lines. These are where plates are sliding by each other, like the San Andreas Fault in California. Lots of friction there, lots of stuck, and then as they slide by each other, lots of earthquakes. Okay, so divergent boundaries, you can see the magma comes up and fills in the gap. Convergent, usually there's a trench, one slides under the other, lots of volcanoes, earthquakes, that kind of stuff. And of course, transform boundaries, lots of earthquakes go on these boundaries as they try to slide by each other. Because remember, they're rock, so they're very rough. It's like trying to slide 2 pieces of sandpaper by each other. It's a pretty difficult process. Okay, so faults and earthquakes. Again, faults occur usually along your convergent boundaries and your transform boundaries more than anyway. If you have a lot of earthquakes, but there's no volcanoes or anything in the area, you can probably assume it's a transform boundary. If there's volcanoes or trenches or something like that, or mountains, it's probably a convergent boundary. Earthquakes. Epicenter of an earthquake is the surface area. Where it actually occurred is usually down in the crust. There's different types of earthquakes. There's P waves and S waves when you do an earthquake. Be aware that the Richter scale, which is how we measure earthquakes, is a base 10 scale. So a earthquake that's a 7 is 10 times worse than an earthquake that is a 6. It's kind of like the pH scale. It's the base 10 scale as well. So as you go up a number, you're going up by a factor of 10. So it's 10 times worse. So a 8 is 100 times worse than a 6, because 10 times 10 is 100. So it goes up rapidly. So when you get in the range of, 7s, 8s, 9s, and a 10, that's a severe earthquake. Very, very, very bad earthquake. I've been through a 6.9 and a 7.1. It was rocking and rolling. Okay, so moving on from there. Rock cycle. You have to be familiar with the rock cycle and know how this all forms. You basically have 3 types of rock. Igneous, metamorphic, and then sedimentary. You need to know how they formed. So sedimentary rock forms when sediments build up and under pressure they get kind of compressed. Over heat and time, they will go and form into metamorphic rock, which is things like your marble and quartz. Your magma can become, once it cools and stuff, that's your igneous rock, like your granite and basalt. And then again, over time, that through heat and pressure, igneous can also become metamorphic rock. Metamorphic, igneous, and sedimentary rock can all weather and erode and break down and be transported and then deposited to make more sedimentary rock over time. So there you go. Okay, so igneous rock that is formed from magma. Sedimentary rock, again, is a layering of sand, mud, gravel, whatever. Over time it gets compressed. And then most sedimentary rock is actually formed in the ocean or in riverbeds and that kind of thing. Metamorphic rock is when either sedimentary or igneous or other metamorphic rocks are subjected to high pressures and temperatures over time and become metamorphic. Okay. Weathering and erosion. Weathering and erosion are two separate things, okay? So don't get them confused. Your book clumps them, which I don't really like, but oh well. Weathering breaks down rock. Makes rock into littler and littler and littler pieces until you have soil. Dirt. There's different types of weathering. There's physical weathering, which is a mechanical breakdown of the rocks. If you take rocks and you bang them together over time, like in a river or something like that, they'll weather. Or if they're beaten together with dust in the wind and stuff like that, it'll break down over time. If water gets into cracks and freezes and expands and breaks the rock more, that's physical weathering. We also have chemical weathering, which is due to acids and stuff like that. Your mosses, your lichens coat rocks, and they actually produce acids to help break down the rocks. That would be a chemical weathering. And then you can actually have biological too, which is kind of physical as well, which is like roots and stuff of plants can get in there and break rocks, kind of thing. Erosion is just the physical removal of soil from one location to another. It can be done by wind, water, ice, living organisms, kind of thing. So the picture there shows the little crevices and stuff that have been eroded away where the soil has been eroded due to probably water. Erosion is moving soil. It's moving dirt from one location to another. Doesn't really form dirt, just moves it. The Dust Bowl of the Great Depression was a big issue with erosion because of the wind and stuff. The soil was so dry, it was blowing it all over the place. Erosion is a huge concern because a lot of our erosion is occurring and removing a lot of our good topsoil. So that's affecting our agriculture. Okay, sorry, keep yawning. Okay. Soil. Soil, dirt, soil. Soil, dirt, soil. You have got to know this stuff. It's really, 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 really important. Soil is important because it's a medium for plant growth. Without soil, we can't grow any of our plants. It filters our water and removes a lot of pollution, and so the water going into our aquifers is nice and clean. It's a habitat for living things like bacteria and earthworms and groundhogs and that kind of thing. And it also filters those pollutants again out of all kinds of stuff. It's so important. Literally, soil is probably the number one resource that we are provided by the environment, and we don't take care of it very well. So I'm going to leave off there with this one, and then we will pick up soil